Hey Eric, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Today was a decent day, it seemed like outside, not quite as hot as it has been, but still very nice and sunny.
Yeah, I know it was the last few days were up almost to 90 or breached the 90s, and
Exactly.
the world shuts down when you get into the 90s around here.
My wife was relaying complaints from the children to her sister that it was so hot outside because it was like, 80. And they, of course, live in Phoenix. So I think the
Of
temperature at the
course.
time was like 114. And yeah, not a lot of sympathy from the people in 114 to the people that, oh my gosh, it's breaking 80.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, it's been nice weather. It's been lovely around here.
Well, my high school daughter, who is also my little budding activist, we
Yes.
went to downtown Portland to see well, if you believe the news, the out of control riots of going on in downtown Portland by the Justice Center. Yeah, that's not what we saw.
Yeah.
We, of course, also did not hang out until late into the evening when things seemed to be getting out of control. But yeah, we went down. We saw lots of graffiti, and the crowds were kind of there. We didn't hang out for long, but it seemed like a pretty peaceful protest to me.
I love the concept of the wall of moms.
It was a friendly atmosphere, probably is the best way to put it from what we saw.
Nice. Yeah.
Like I said, we didn't stay till late into the evening. And anyways,
Well,
enough about that. Don't believe everything you see on the news, folks, I guess is the key there.
yeah. Yeah. It is terrible that Portland's currently being used as kind of the proving grounds for illegal activity on the part of the federal government.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've read a number of items about that, and I think there's going to be some remunerations required. For example, specifically around,
Yeah.
you don't get to just pick people up off the streets. The courts have ruled about that. So
Yeah. You can't do proactive. This is not Minority Report.
yeah,
There
right,
are no psychics in pools of water telling you who might do a crime.
exactly.
Anyways, I have no idea how to properly segue from that, but
No, well, I'm glad that glad you guys had a chance to go down, and good for her
yeah.
for kind of pushing that.
So the segue will be my microscope.
Oh,
I was all excited.
I thought you
It's
were
got to
almost
be a
done.
month
In
ago
fact,
now.
you said last week you would be done by this week.
I thought I would be, but it seems like every time I get one step further, I find something in the instructions that were new and print new things that weren't on the original list of things to print. Some of it is too, I didn't have the right tool. So you have to, there's a screw you have to screw in that's really deep. And I did not have a hex screw long enough to reach from the outside of the microscope to where the screw was in the middle. And I'm like,
Hmm.
which of course, Amazon and $10 later, 2 days, $10 later, I have the right tool to be able to do that. But it's,
2 days here, 2 days there. Pretty soon you're talking about weeks.
yeah. And I had ordered the two sets of screws, one for the 2 millimeter size and one for the 3 millimeter size. And I didn't check the Amazon order when it showed up. They sent me two of the 2 millimeter size, so I had the wrong screws at one point. It
Oh,
just seems like I just can't win. But
hmm.
I do have it mostly constructed now. I've got the LED all in place. Although now I discovered that my wires weren't long enough, so I'm going to have to redo some wiring to reach to the Raspberry Pi. So I'm getting there, but it is a slower than expected,
Hmm.
frustrating process.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the first picture that you're able to take with it, and I'm curious as to the quality.
I do now know how the camera setup works. You actually take the lens off of the Raspberry Pi camera, and it snaps into you print a piece, and it's a little bit long. I'm showing you with my fingers now, not that anybody on the podcast can see that. It's about an inch, about a little bit longer than an inch. It's a little tube. You put the lens at the top and then the camera at the bottom now. So there's...
Okay.
It changes the focal length, I guess.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
So that helps. So I've got, like I said, I've got most of it there. The other thing I had to order, because I realized at one point, I'm like, I don't have any microscope slides. So how am I actually going to look at something through the microscope if it's not on a microscope? So again, $6, 2 days, and Amazon later, I now have some microscope slides for putting it. It's just taking forever.
That's cool though.
And it'll be fun once I get it done. But next week I'm actually going on vacation, so it may be a couple weeks before it actually gets finished, because I'm close now to now download the software, install it on the Pi, and get that part up and running. So I'm getting closer. But I still think there's other problems.
Are you able to kind of set one thing aside or use some duct tape, so to speak, but still move forward to find out what the next impediment is going to be?
Well, yeah, I have taped a few things, and
literally
part of it too is
that was supposed to be metaphorical, but okay.
No, literally, I have actually literally taped a few things. I could have read all the instructions ahead of time and been better prepared, but I did not. The side bonus here is while we've been waiting for various things and having to print new things, I mentioned a few weeks ago too, my boy and I were struggling with Rocket League. We've been playing Rocket League and enjoying playing Rocket League. We've finally beaten the pro level a few times now, and we're thinking a few more times, and then maybe we're going to try to migrate to the all-star versions of the AIs.
Ooh, so we'll see. No longer rookies.
No, we're past rookies. We're at the pro level, and we can actually beat the AIs most of the time now. You play a season and then you get to the playoffs, and we've won the playoffs, I think, 3 times now. That is a side benefit while things are, dang it, I need to reprint this.
Yeah.
My boy's like, can we do a couple games of Rocket League? Sure, let's go.
That's cool.
So
that's cool.
That's fun.
That's awesome. It's fun. Well,
I know what you're going to chat about.
Yeah,
and me too.
Yeah. We should. I'm curious to know more about how it went for you. But yeah, so my weekend was largely home ec kind of stuff. we made pickles. We preserved green beans and made jelly. Lots and lots of jelly. But anyway, so I like pickles. I like pickles a lot. And I make my own pickles generally. I have for years now. I wonder how many years. I don't quite know. But we buy our cucumbers. I tried to grow them a couple of times last year and maybe the year before. And I just can't grow enough cucumbers that you get enough to make large batches of pickles at the same time. So I don't know. I find I have to buy cucumbers. But the place that we buy cucumbers for, I hadn't seen the ad yet, and it was normally mid-July when we've been seeing their ads the last couple of years. And so I actually looked back at my photos from last year and was like, what was the name of that place? And called them up and said, hey, do you guys have cucumbers this year? And she said that they were not advertising, and they don't have like a self-service fruit stand or food stand anymore. With the whole COVID thing, they don't want people coming in and
right,
touching things.
Right.
So, but she said, for people that know about them, they'll still support them. So Saturday morning, I called them at like 8:30, and she said, "Yep, got them. And so I think I texted you and it was like, because you had told me that when I bought my cucumbers to let you know, and you would like to make some pickles too. And so I think I texted you on Saturday morning, was like, well, it's pickle day. It's cucumber day for me. Do you want some still? And so, yeah, so I got 2 25-pound bags, and you got a 25-pound bag yourself. And we made pickles all day Saturday, which was, it was a lot of work, and it was a long day, but
yeah,
you went pretty fast.
Yeah, no, we did. We went through, and my boy and I basically we assembly lined it. You know, we chopped them, we stuffed them. We got it down to a science now. We were not, how to phrase it? I let my boy be in charge of the slicing. And we left quite a few jars of whole pickles because I had you get me the smaller bag, so not the larger spears, but the smaller sized ones, the gherkins, smaller sized ones. And so we left a bunch of them whole. And so there wasn't a lot of, there was prep, but not a ton of prep of the pickles. It was cut off the ends. And yeah, they are not uniform in any way, shape, or form. But they're a pickle. So, it doesn't need to look good where it ends up.
Yeah.
So
well, I do almost all sandwich builders or sandwich slices, like long down the side. And so it involves a lot of
yes.
mandolin. So a couple of years ago and before that, I would just cut them all by hand. But that was it's not what I do anymore. But I think overall we wound up with 84 pints of pickles. So
yeah, that sounds about right.
And I give away a lot every year as well. But I also eat a lot. I was looking back. I think I tweeted sometime in. Oh, I didn't go back and look at when it was, but basically when staying at home, working from home started at the end of March, I had 22 pints left from last year. And the same day that we made pickles, which was Saturday, I opened up my last pint from last year. So in that 3-month period, I ate 21 pints of pickles, which makes it sound like a lot.
That's a jar every 3 days.
That's more than one a week.
4 days.
Yeah, there's not that much. Yeah. Like okay. So I am the kind of guy that I like pickles on my sandwiches, and I eat sandwiches a lot. If I'm at home having lunch, I probably am having a sandwich, and or I do cheese and crackers with pickles and sausage. Which, although these days, since I've been trying to cut down on calories, I do cheese and crackers without the crackers. Spam and eggs hold the spam. But yeah. And then, and we do lots of salads for dinners, and I at least always cut up a couple of pickles and put them on my salad because I like pickles on my salad too. So, anyway, that was what the weekend is. And then the other thing we did was our blackberries are ripe, ripe enough at least. And so we picked a whole bunch. I don't think I actually got a weight, or I didn't. I tared them. No, I didn't tear them. That was the problem. I weighed them with the jar, with the bowls full, and then I never went back to weigh the empty bowls to find out how much was actually berries. But I think it was something maybe like 20 or a little over 20 pounds of blackberries we picked and made into 4. I think we did 4 batches of blackberry jelly, because that's the one that my kids like the most. The
blackberry jelly.
And so I personally like raspberry, but and it is jelly, not jam, because we basically kind of cook the berries a little bit to make them loosen up and then strain them so that we don't have the seeds in them. Because blackberry seeds are very, very big. Yes. So, that kind of wastes a lot of the mass of the blackberries, but everybody likes blackberry jelly.
Yeah.
More than blackberry
jam.
But that was fun. That was fun. So, and we did a bunch of experiments. So I haven't, got to let them sit for a week or two. But I did some fresh dill. I did some dill, like fresh dill and dill seeds. I did some with garlic in them. I did some with jalapenos in them. It's gonna be, it's fun.
Yeah,
it's a little experiment.
I told my boy he could put whatever he wanted in 2 jars. So there are 2 jars that are the everything bagel of the pickles. He put the fresh seed, the fresh dill, the seed, garlic, pepper, red pepper flakes. I mean, he just went to town throwing everything in the world in them. They're the jars that have an orange hue to them, an orange tint as well. So,
okay. Probably from red pepper flakes.
I have not opened any jars yet. I want to let them sit at least a week before I open a jar.
Yeah, you gotta let them sit a bit. But I have never made dill pickles with fresh dill before, though. But the place that we were buying them from said, "Oh, you want fresh dill?" And I was like, "Yes, I guess." I'm game to experiment. So I'll be very curious to see how well they turn out. Because if they're better,
then that's a new thing.
That's awesome.
Yes,
totally.
Yeah. So thank you so much for picking up that for me. Because yes, I'm very excited about my own pickles now too.
But you have a lot more jars than you made last year. So you either got to give away a lot, or you got to step up
I have
your pickle
twice as many jars. We ended up with 43 jars of pickles, and I think I only had maybe 20 last year. So, because I could only find about 10 jars. I'm like, did we really give away? Did I really only eat? But I ran out of pickles a long time ago. I did not open my last jar this week. I think I opened my last jar last year. So maybe I'll make it.
They're not. See, they're not that big. It's only like 3 or 4 meals. Anyway, okay, that's way too much pickle talk. Funny. Okay, I see you put at least one thing in Followup, and then I put a couple things in Followup.
Yeah,
talk Twitter.
There's really not, I suppose, a whole lot to say. The Twitter has an update on their blog about what we mentioned last week, and essentially they are saying that it was the attackers had targeted a few specific Twitter employees through social engineering. So they somehow convinced the Twitter employees to divulge information to them, and that essentially gave them access to a tool inside of Twitter that it was God mode, or whatever the right term is for that, on certain accounts. And there were 130 accounts that they found. 45 of those accounts they were able to set a password reset, log in, and then start sending tweets, which is what we saw last week. I think just today they announced that there was 36 of the accounts the attackers downloaded their direct messages. So essentially the private messages on the inside of your Twitter account, including an elected official in the Netherlands. And I assume Twitter is working with law enforcement in the appropriate jurisdictions. But it seems, I think it's telling that it's an elected official in the Netherlands, if you're wondering who was targeted. So
there's another thing in there that said some number. I seem to remember it being a relatively little number, but I didn't see it up there, of those accounts that they got into. They downloaded their whole details. Oh, yes. For up to 8 of the Twitter accounts involved, the attackers took the additional step of downloading the account's information through your Twitter data tool, meaning that they took even after they lost access, they'll have a download of all of the data that Twitter has about that account. There was some info after we recorded last week that made it sound as if there might have been like an actual malicious insider, but I don't know. I think that was mostly conspiracy theorist stuff at the moment. I haven't seen anything confirmation about that.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of, and I'm air quoting, additional information, oddly enough, or expectedly enough, on Twitter about what actually happened, but their official statement is social engineering, and
yeah,
we'll see where that goes and what fallout, because I imagine it's going to be a while before. This is not going to be the end of the news cycle on this one for Twitter. So
no, that's not the full disclosure. I'll tell you though. I'll switch to one of my follow-ups. I'll switch the order that they are in the notes, because one of my follow-ups was actually a breach report as well, but it was just a fantastic example of how to write a sort of a root cause analysis of a breach. And this is a Twilio link, right? So Twilio is programmatic access to communications, basically.
Yep.
But anyway, so the cool thing about this is the way that the report is written. So they had a breach on July 19th. So we're recording this on the 22nd. So it was, it was 3 days ago. That was kind of combined a number of things that we've talked about on the podcast before. The root of the problem was an S3 bucket that was world writable, that someone, they said through a Tor node actually, updated a library that they had they basically were using this S3 bucket to host API integration, so libraries that people using the Twilio API would use to include in their apps. And so somebody on the internet updated their exposed library code to inject a mage cart vulnerability. So or a mage cart exploit. So they had an S3 bucket, and the great thing about this write-up is they said, the permissions for the S3 bucket were world writable, and they went back and looked at when did that change, and when that was first deployed, it was not world writable, but evidently in debugging an issue a few months after it was initially implemented, the permissions was opened up to debug it and not properly reset. So, yep. I mean, I'll be honest. I have done that myself. Right. I mean, I think we've even complained on the podcast before of how hard it is to get IAM, the identity and access management policies correct. And anytime you say, you have a star on permissions for something in there, there's, it's a code smell that says, hey, you probably have more permissions allowed than you want to. Anyway, so somebody had gone in and made it, world writable a long time ago, and it's been this way. But then, basically the code was injected with a mage cart exploit, and then anyone who downloaded or accessed that library for the time that it was out there, was basically hosting or could have been hosting a vulnerable application. If you take a look at the article, the nice thing about this though too is they owned up to everything that you expect in one, or that you would hope for in one. What was the vulnerability? Exactly what happened? What was the root cause? What was the historical incident that led up to it? And then what are you going to do to remediate it? And then what are you going to do to prevent future occurrences? And all of which was just really well done in here. So I really like this, and I thought it kind of hit a number of items that we've talked about, before. This S3 bucket exploits are super common. Mage cart is very prevalent at the moment still, but And so the second bit of follow-up that I have for this week was Apple just today made their new security research device program available. So we talked about this a while back. I didn't look up the podcast episode on it, but the complaint about Apple is that you have to violate Apple's terms of service basically to do security research. Right. And Apple is actively suing companies that help make tools that make it possible. So it's very hard to do iOS exploit development and security research. So, but one of the things that Apple said in their, months ago was that they would have a program that would enable researchers to get devices, for the express purpose of, security research. And so they announced it today. But most of the, or many...
the high profile.
Let's see, with the exact quote is, some of the biggest names in iPhone vulnerability research have announced plans to skip the security research device program, including Project Zero, for example, because in the text of the program, Apple has a quote that says, "If you report a vulnerability affecting Apple's products, Apple will provide you with a publication date, usually the date on which Apple releases the update to resolve the issue. Apple will work in good faith to resolve each vulnerability as soon as practical. Until the publication date, you cannot discuss the vulnerability with others." And, basically like Project Zero, they have a, saying they hold a firm stance on responsible disclosure is saying it mildly. They have a fierce, maybe that's a good way of saying it, a fierce stance for responsible disclosure, aka they're going to release publicly news about the exploit after 90 days, not 89 days and not 91 days. And so having Apple attempt at least to, one perspective of this is that this is Apple's getting to try and put a muzzle on security researchers and say, Apple will tell you when you can talk and only when we're good and ready for it. And yet that leverage of, disclosure without preparation is really the stick that, security researchers use to, get quick movement on the part of companies. So, I get the perspective that you're being provided with special hardware with special software on it that have, policies on it that allow you to do more at the OS level than you can on a perfectly, the sandboxed devices. And having Apple provide hardware that makes it easier to develop an exploit, and then somebody turns around and sells that exploit on the open market would be, not cool either. But, in general, the people we're talking about are, well-established, well-known security researchers. Maybe that's not everybody who would be in the program. So, I don't want to say that it's all bad on Apple, but I guess I would expect, in order to get the support of companies like Project Zero, Apple should have had some hard limits in here that, something that maybe followed the responsible disclosure of saying, Apple will provide you with a publication date, usually the day, or anyway, something that basically said, if it's more than 90 days, then you get to talk. And then, that would definitely put some, put some restrictions on them, but, give the incentives required.
Yeah, given how often Apple updates, provides updates to their versions, I would bet that most things probably are going to fit within some 90-day window, but there is that open there that if it's a really obscure issue that Apple could just say, we're just not going to fix it until the next major release of iOS, and you may have to sit on that one for a year. So well,
yeah. I mean, again, I guess my stance on that would be Apple gets the choice of whether it's worth fixing, even if it's publicly disclosed. So if you want to keep it private and have the fix available privately, then you got to work fast. And if you don't mind, then it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and both situations are reasonable. Not every defect found is worth fixing tomorrow. Right. That's just not the way the world works. But anyway, this is it's interesting. I'm glad they're certainly glad to see it moving forward in some ways, but I'll be curious to see what the reaction is, the counter reaction to the initial reaction of the the program's release.
Yep.
So we'll see. All right, what'd you bring for a topic this week?
Well, I thought this was a fun one, mostly because it involves setting fire to things.
I have not read this.
We've talked about, right, more and more software is controlling the physical devices that we interact with every day, right? It used to be you had to protect your computer because that's where the viruses were, or, that's where software lived. Now software lives everywhere, and it's starting to control stuff without screens. There's the little cylinders we have. There's software in everything now. And the more accurate term for a lot of these is firmware, right? It's that piece of code that runs the hardware. And so this article is about the firmware in fast chargers. So that's been a recent development, right? Where you can buy a charger that will negotiate with the device and send power and recharge that device as fast as the negotiation between the fast charger and the device agree to. So if a new device, like newer phones and newer devices, support fast charging capabilities where you can actually charge the device much faster, which is good, but there's software that has to negotiate that. And so there was a group of Chinese researchers from a research lab from the tech giant Tencent, the Chinese tech giant Tencent, who have discovered they can hack the firmware that does that negotiation of the fast charger to actually override and send to send wrong data to the fast charger, which will send more current, more electricity, more power to whatever device is charging and potentially cause that device to catch fire, explode, melt, whatever. So they went and they tested a bunch of chargers. I mean, there's hundreds of chargers out there and fast chargers out there. And they picked 35, found 18 vulnerable. The nice thing is all you got to do is fix that by updating the firmware. But who's updating the firmware of
who updates the firmware? Yeah, thank you.
Fast charger plug, right? So anyways, just one more thing to worry about.
I don't think most people, I'm not even sure that I realized that, like these are like the Anchor chargers, right?
Things like that.
Yeah. I don't even think I realized that they had user updatable firmware. I mean, clearly they have firmware on them, but I didn't realize they were user updatable.
I think that is still an open question, whether or not they are user updatable firmware, because they don't say that just download a firmware and somehow get it to the device. The answer is most of these problems can be
most
fixed
of these things are probably
a firmware update.
Yeah.
So we shall see. But just one more thing to worry about. In addition to making sure you get the right USB-C cable when you charge something.
Good luck.
Now you got to make sure you don't have.
I am not sure I like our brave new world. I don't know if I've complained on the podcast, or maybe I'm not even sure I've complained to you, but I have a Mac and a laptop, and I have one of those, one of their HDMI dongles that is what I use because I display it on a monitor, right? And so I've got my power normally plugged in through the dongle. But if for some reason the laptop is dead, like dead, you can't charge through the dongle because you have to, the laptop has to power the adapter in order to enable the pass-through power. And so, which is, it has bit me a couple of times of why is my laptop not turning on? What's going on? And it happens when it gets drained far enough for whatever reason that it no longer is accepting the pass-through power. And I have to unplug it from the dongle, plug it straight in for a while, and then let it go. Anyway, this is not the best. This is not the best of timelines to live in. So the thing that I chose this week was actually a breach. Could have been our breach of the week, I guess, maybe. But there were actually 2 breaches this week to genealogy sites. The first was to a site called GEDmatch.
Oh, I just tried to go to GEDmatch.com and it says the site is down for maintenance. Currently no ETA.
So this is the first thing. So okay, there's a couple things about this. This is actually not the primary one I was going to talk about, but the GEDmatch, evidently one of the things about them is that they allow you to opt in to use your DNA for police to try and match against cold cases.
What?
Basically. And because there was a whole bunch of or you heard a couple years ago, right? How they found the Golden State Killer from tracking down the DNA on various sites, but one of the repercussions of that was, people going, in general, wait, what is my stuff what is my DNA being used for? And the fact that a lot of these DNA companies are making the kits really easy and cheap to use, but then they're turning around and selling access to the data, right? But anyway, so the hack that happened on July 19th, so this was, again, 3 days ago, was somebody got in to GEDmatch and basically reset all of the profiles so that even if you had not opted in, you could you would be available for matching. And evidently it's the sort of thing that, when a new profile gets uploaded, they automatically try and match against things because they notify you when, hey, you have a new relative that does this, or the cops can basically put in things that they're looking to match to, and they'll automatically be matched against things that are available. And so for prior to the breach, it said 280,000 out of the 1.45 million profiles were opting in. So, it's not that large of a opt-in. But Sunday's breach changed the setting, so all 1.45 million profiles were opted in, which is, and whether they were accessed, what happened. There was the quote I pulled out was, in a statement emailed to BuzzFeed News, Verogen explained that the sudden unmasking of GED profiles that were supposed to be hidden from law enforcement was, quote, orchestrated through a sophisticated attack on one of our servers via an existing user account. So it doesn't really say. There wasn't enough information in this, whether it was it a user of the site that when they're logged in, they were able to do something to do an escalation, or whether it was, kind of like the Twitter thing, an admin account of some sort. It didn't really say. But then the second breach was to a site called MyHeritage.com that that it seems as if the breach to GEDmatch revealed a lot of emails, and then those emails, they're basically phishing mails were sent to MyHeritage users using the emails from the GEDmatch breach to attempt to get them to log in to a fake login page at myheritage.com, which basically MyHeritage, but with a Q instead of the G.
Got it.
So, it's kind of like typo squatting.
Yeah.
So it looked like a match for the site, and at short, or at first blush, you might not catch that it was a Q instead of a G. So that was interesting. And then they said that at least 16 people have fallen victim. So that's not a huge number, like in the grand scheme of things. I don't, but I don't know how they actually identified those people as being victims. Basically with the phishing site, presumably they log in, provide username and credentials, then they get some error page that says, "Hey, site's down for maintenance," or something like that. But they've just handed their username and password off to whoever is running the phishing page. And then so the response from the MyHeritage company was, we attempted to contact each of these users individually to warn them to change their password and to set up two-factor authentication on MyHeritage. So, infer from that the MyHeritage does support two-factor authentication, and those accounts would have, they might not necessarily have been protected in the act of logging into the phishing page if the phishers were using their credentials essentially real time, right? So if they present the username and password and try and log in, which sends the code to the phone, assuming it's SMS, depending on what it is, or if the person enters a code on the phishing site, like right then and there, they could have relayed that in and logged in at that point. But anyway,
what would an attacker do with, let's say I have a MyHeritage account and I fall victim to the scam? What would the hacker do with being able to log into my family tree, start posting nasty stories about my Uncle Bob kind of thing? I don't know what, I mean, unless if I can get into MyHeritage, then assume that's password reuse and go elsewhere. But
well, the MyHeritage one said that they do not share accounts with law enforcement, so that seems less of appealing. So I'm not sure about that. The GEDmatch had a more obvious, larger potential motive. The conjecture at the bottom of this article is basically just, there's actually a quote that says, "What motivated the attacks is unclear. Colleen Fitzpatrick, a genealogist and president of Identifinders International," never heard of them, but okay, which works with law enforcement, said she suspected the hackers were joyriding. So, there's no necessarily like financial motivation,
bragging rights
that I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
For this at the moment, but color me old man yells at cloud on this one, in that I have not taken a DNA test. I don't really intend to take a DNA test until something requires me to.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Okay, something fun. What's fun?
So my something fun is mostly just because I wanted to say the sentence, "The Beavers have won."
Okay, as an Oregon State Beavers, yes. I actually got I got my master's from Oregon State.
No, actual Beavers.
No, not those kind of Beavers. Okay.
So my something fun is my boy and I, and my kids and I in general, we enjoy riding bikes, and there's a number of bike trails around. But of course, we also live in an area that is very keen on restoring wetlands and habitats, etc. And there is a section of a trail that we love to ride bikes on. It's called the Fano Creek Trail, that has been so successful in the wetland restoration that beavers have moved in and have built at least 5 dams along a 1-mile stretch of this trail. And the problem is every time, during the wet season, there is a section that goes underneath a big road, Shoals Ferry Road. That's the main road to get out of where we're at. And there's a section that goes under there, and every year it floods due to the beavers and the beaver dams. And,
those damning beavers.
That's right. We've even helped over the years, replanting, and it's a popular area for going and helping do replanting. I know we've done that service projects for school or Girl Scouts or Cub Scouts when my kids were little and involved in those things. But there is now an article that the city has finally given in and said, because they've been repairing and tweaking and putting embankments up and trying to make sure that the trail underneath the main road stays clear, but it just never works. Every year it floods and basically it blocks the trail. And the only way out is to go up onto the main road, but there's no crosswalks nearby. So you're either trying to zip across, 5 big lanes of traffic, or, ride or walk down to one of the crosswalks a bit of ways.
Wow.
The proposal from the city is now that they may install a crosswalk above a people-only crosswalk above ground so that people can get across and they won't have to worry about the trail anymore. Or, the beavers damming up the, flooding the trail anymore. And this isn't the only spot. It gets flooded in several spots along the way. They've had to reroute the trail a number of times because the beavers have won.
Okay, well that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I can't quite tell from this the map that's in here exactly where this is on the road, but the beavers have won. Okay, well that is cool. All right, go ahead and click that first link in my follow-up. And then actually when you're in that, you might need to click
is this
it escalated quickly
Doom Task Manager video?
Oh, it got taken down.
You have to click on the link for that.
Yes.
I did see this. Yeah.
Did you see this? So this is basically somebody who did if you have a large enough number of processors in your computer and you go into Task Manager, you'll wind up with an array of processors, thread count basically, that is large enough that you can treat it as a screen, pixels basically, and then, quote unquote, play video on it. So this video was of somebody supposedly playing Doom on the processor window. So you saw the video?
Yeah, I just put the link in the show notes. I put the YouTube link in the show notes.
Yeah, you did. Okay, cool. So the thing about this though, so this was what I saw, and I was like, oh gosh, that has to be my something cool. That's awesome. It's actually fake. If you click the second link in there is to somebody who, because it's the internet and people are awesome, the second link is somebody who did it actually for real.
That's why the tweet is unavailable.
So it is, yeah, that's probably why the video was taken down, was because it was fake. But anyway, so the second link is, it is not as high resolution as the quote unquote playing Doom video was on the Task Manager, but it's still pretty dang good. So the video in the second video, they've actually put the video that they're playing down in the lower right hand corner of, and then you can see the Task Manager above it. So anyway, I thought, At first I thought, oh my gosh, somebody really did that. And then there's a Reddit thread that had, all the reasons why it was fake, which was cool. And then another link to somebody that actually like legit did it, which is cool. So that's my something fun. And I want a computer that has that many cores.
All right. Yeah. I remember seeing that thinking, oh, this is cool. And then I read this is fake. And like, oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm watching the video. Okay. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah, and that looks like the person who did it for real had a 64 core processor, and it looks like my rough counting of that looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks like it's maybe, is it 8 on the top? 16 wide by 8 high. So it must be 2 threads per core and 64 cores. But so I mean the resolution of that is only 16 by 8, which is not a super high resolution, but that'll get better as more cores come out. You just need to get a couple thousand cores.
To see that run on Apple Silicon.
Hello, Apple Silicon. I was gonna yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
So we'll see. Okay. Right. Anyway, that was my something fun this week. All right, man. Yeah. Have a good rest of your week.
All right. Thanks, John. Bye.